All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spiritual Grit. How are you on this beautiful day? I hope wherever you are, you're feeling awesome. You're feeling groovy. You're feeling like you can cut some rug today. I love the new music. But anyway, today I have a special guest. And if you're watching the video, you already see her, but let me give a proper introduction. My guest today is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher. I'm not going to say her name just yet because that's how I do my intros. She also teaches aerial yoga, which I hear is her favorite form of yoga, which is awesome. I want to read her favorite quote. Yoga is not about touching your toes. It is what you learn on the way down. And I love that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go into the conversation. She holds a BBA in international business. So fancy. And she's got all these letters after her name that I'm like, girl is certified. Like, you don't even know. She's got all the things, and you can check the show notes for her official bio because it's just so cool. I just love it. But if I read all these things, you'd be like, what? Who is this superwoman? She's also a certified second-degree Reiki practitioner, which is totally relevant to our podcast. So I wanted to make mention of that as well. And the thing I was talking to her about before we started recording this was what was her thing, like her favorite thing. And she said that she loves interior design, loves getting her hands dirty and repurposing things and sort of revisioning. So I want to dive a little more into that as we move into the conversation. So welcome to the show, Elise Guadalupe.
Thank you, Leslie, for having me. It is a pleasure.
I am so glad
about this.
Yes, I'm so glad we got connected. We are doing this episode together. And so for those listening, Elise and I teach at the same yoga studio, which is Honor Yoga in Warren, New Jersey. And as folks know who've been listening to the show, I'm all about amplifying voices of color, particularly women of color. And so I was like, oh, I have another yoga teacher who's a woman of color. What? So my mind exploded and I was like, yes, we need more. And we need to hear from more of folks like us. Mm-hmm. So before we get into our one-on-one conversation, I want to call in Hafez to kind of bring in some mystical elements into what might unfold. And so there's no such thing as random. So today's oracle poem from Hafez will be called The Body, a Tree. I love this one. The body, a tree. The body, a tree, God, a wind. When he moves me like this, angels bump heads with each other, gathering beneath my cheeks, holding their wine barrels, catching the brilliant tear, pearl rain. I love that. I love thinking about the body as a tree and God is the wind. That's sort of connecting with us, moving us, but also reminding us like, hey, I'm here. You don't just have to be here alone growing. Does anything there stand out for you? What speaks to you?
Yeah, what calls to mind for me is the body as a tree. It reminds us to be flexible and to allow God to bend us. And if we are flexible enough to bend, then we're going to break.
Yeah. Sometimes we all are like, we're just going to break.
Exactly. But even if you've been to the point of breaking, if you have faith, then fear cannot reside there.
Yes.
So keeping that childlike enthusiasm, as a way to keep us from becoming stuck and attached to things.
Yeah. I love bringing the child in because I was talking to some of my yoga students yesterday about how as adults, we get so locked in to certain ways of being. Like, it's almost as if the minute we turn, like adult, whatever that is, whether it's 25, 30, 40, 50, who knows, right? Mm-hmm. But once we start paying rent and bills and things like that, we think, okay, it's over. right? We are just this one rigid thing. But kids, they're fearless. They
Mhm.
feel like, let's do cartwheels. We're not terrified of putting our legs over our head, you know? So I love how you brought that back in. And I wonder how we can continue to practice that in our everyday. Like, what are some things that you do to remind yourself of being childlike, of having this flexibility, the sense of play?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I focus on aerial yoga,
Mm.
because there's one thing that I do in every single class is swing. We're
Yes.
sitting on a swing, so swing. And it's not fun if you don't say we.
Yeah.
Like we, but pump those legs. There's a method to my madness in order to warm the body up, but just that freedom of being able to swing as an adult. You see the clients, their faces just light up when they're
Yeah.
reminded of
Yeah.
being on that playground when they didn't have a care in the world. And for that, 60 minutes or so, or 45 minutes or so, they're just playing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, because I have taken your class before, and I love that swinging. My question to you is, how long does it take for clients to actually relax and have fun? Like, that initial, like, wait, what are you asking us to do?
Well, it depends on the person, honestly,
Yeah.
but just having a person sit in the aerial swing, which is suspended from the ceiling, having them sit and reminding them of what they did as a child on a swing. And I literally get behind them and push. I will push you, tell you to pump your legs, give you positive reinforcement. That in itself helps people relax because it's something familiar. So even though aerial yoga is unfamiliar, sitting on a swing and swinging is familiar to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that gesture of pushing the person on the swing is
Right.
really beautiful, because it's a physical reminder that you're being taken care of, that you're safe, that you're
Exactly.
held. Someone is there supporting you, but also pushing you at the same time.
That's
Like,
right.
literally, right?
Literally pushing you, but letting you know that I got you. I'm not
Yeah.
going to let you go too far.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. And so if you guys are local, you need to go to Elise's class. I will put all the info in the show notes, but it's just amazing to have that invitation to come back to our childlike selves.
Yes.
And to just play and be flexible. Like the poem is saying, our bodies are trees, and yeah, we can be rooted into the earth and we can stand tall. But when challenges come our way, and God is like, hey, I want to bend you a little bit so that you can grow even more.
Mhm.
Where is that flexibility going to come from? It'll come from the inner child, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every
Yeah.
single time.
Oh, so
Without
good.
question.
Oh. I just love talking to you.
Thank you so much.
So
You too.
here's the question that I'm a curiosity that I have, because you and I just have recently met and
Mhm.
have gotten to start to know each other. So I would love to hear about your journey into yoga. How did you come to yoga? How did you find it? Because I know for a lot of folks of color,
Mhm.
yoga is not seen as something for us. It's marketed
Mhm.
to a certain demographic, thin white women who are bendy,
Mhm.
you know?
Exactly.
And so when something is marketed not for us, there's this, I mean, who thinks, okay, I'm going to go do yoga? Like, if you don't see yourself reflected in that thing, it doesn't occur to you to try it or explore it or whatever. So how did you find yourself in it led to yoga?
Um, Grief is initially what led me to
Mm,
yoga.
mm,
I lost my husband on 9/11. He was a
mm,
firefighter,
mm,
and I was depressed and sad and
mhm.
lost. I had been with this man forever, and I could not imagine a world without him. And I went to the doctor. I was sad. I was crying all the time. And my Western doctor actually, he suggested that I take yoga
Wow.
just to ease my anxiety.
Mhm.
And the first, I would say 6 months, I pretty much just sat in class and cried and was in child's pose most of the time.
Wow.
But eventually I kept coming back, and then I started practicing the physical practice initially. And then when my body started feeling a little bit better, then the mental part of it came in. And my love for yoga it grew and grew.
Yeah.
And I decided I practiced for about 5 years before I decided to take the teacher training. And, when you start on the first day of teacher training, then why are you taking teacher training? I'm like, oh, I just want to deepen my practice. I just want to know what the teachers know because I'm nosy like that. I have no intention of teaching.
Famous last words.
10 years later, here I am.
Yeah, I think everyone goes in like that. And then
exactly. It's like, oh no. I mean, I would actively avoid practice teaching during training because I'm like, I'm not going to teach. So what do I need to practice teaching for?
Right.
But then I finally got over my nerves and my fear, of standing up in front of a crowd of people because even though I'm a very outgoing person, I have severe stage fright. So getting in front of a group of people, it scared me so bad, but I had to bear down and gather my fortitude, put my big girl panties on, and do it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that. I also love the description of like, I got my fortitude, which is like, yes. And then I got my big girl panties on.
Exactly.
Like, come on, girl. Let's own it.
The courage. You got to have that fortitude and you got to have the courage.
And the support, like literally. Right. Put on that girdle.
That's right. Exactly. Suck it in.
Yeah. Feel supported. There is something to be said about clothing that gives us that physical sensation of support. Like, I mean, we can knock Spanx all we want, but sometimes we just need it for that pressure of feeling held. I'm just saying.
I mean, I regularly wear a waist trainer, not because I'm trying to,
look slim,
dissolve my waist, but because actually it supports my back, keeps my posture upright.
Yeah.
I mean, like, a little Coke bottle don't hurt, but but that's not the reason.
Right. The Coke bottle is just a bonus.
Exactly. That's bonus. That's frosting.
Oh, what a beautiful journey. Obviously not a simple one, not an easy one, but I'm curious about that experience of those first 6 months of just showing up constantly. Like, even though you weren't engaged in the physical asana practice, whatever the sequences were or whatever, what kept calling you back to the mat? Do you know?
The philosophy. Because I needed healing in my mind and heart more than my body. And so just being in that space that was safe and that no one expected anything of me, that it was okay to just come in and sit.
Yeah.
And that every week I felt a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better.
Yeah. It sounds like you found a really fantastic place though, because that's not everyone's experience.
This is true. The studio that I was going to was in Pennsylvania at the time. I had just moved to Pennsylvania. So my family was all in New York. I was pretty isolated out there. I left New York, because I just couldn't deal with the whole 9/11 thing. I needed to get away from that. Yeah. And so I was pretty much on my own, with my little, nuclear family, but I was lonely and I was sad. And and I decided that this cannot stand, because I've always been a very positive person. I've always been a very driven person. And the fact that I couldn't get out of bed was just unacceptable.
Yeah. Your inner self was like, this is not you, girl. Like,
this is unacceptable. Something. Right. So, and I lived in a predominantly white neighborhood.
Mhm.
So I couldn't find a therapist that I felt like could relate to me and
Yeah.
understand what I was going through.
Mhm.
You know, not
Yeah.
only as a widow, not only as a 9/11 widow, but as a woman, as a Black woman.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I lived in, I would have to go into Philadelphia just to get my hair done. You
Yeah.
know, it
Yeah.
was that white back then.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I needed something, something, and yoga saved me. It did.
Yeah.
It
And that studio, I mean, because there are some yoga studios that are just
Right.
focused on workouts, right?
Yes.
Just focused on, how flexible can you get? And that the philosophy piece of it tends to fall away. So what
Right.
a beautiful gift for you to find this particular studio
But
that was steeped in
actually,
yoga.
yeah, believe it or not, it was actually a gym. It's called the Soulberry
Oh,
Club. It's actually a gym.
wow.
But
Wow.
the woman who ran the yoga department, she insisted that it
Mm,
felt like a independent studio away from the gym. And
wow. Wow.
that's when I got my first yoga book, How Yoga Works. I read my
Mm,
first yoga book there. And that book by Geshe Michael, it changed my life.
wow.
How Yoga Works. It changed
That
my
is
life.
that is so
It
powerful. I
did.
mean, even a bigger gift that
Yeah,
this wasn't at a studio, this was at a gym.
it was at a
That
gym.
is that is amazing. Wow. You have been guided, like divinely guided. This is your path for sure. Like
Absolutely.
so amazing. So as a Black woman in yoga community spaces,
Mhm.
what has it been like for you, like from that initial journey of just being in shavasana, or sorry, child's pose for 6 months, and then slowly moving into the physical practice, but then moving into teacher training, which I'm going to assume was predominantly white. um
Yes.
so what has that been like for you as you so I think my question is, I'm curious about this spiritual path, right, through
Mhm.
yoga, which in essence knows no race, right? Um,
Mhm.
but we live in a very physical human body
Mhm.
in a society that is built on systemic racism, right? And so how do you navigate that predominantly white space in that's steeped in a certain spiritual philosophy, knowing that you are different from those around you, you know? I mean, there's a lot, it's a deep question. I'm not sure I'm
Yeah,
asking it like very
no,
well, but
I think I understand what you mean. Yeah, because I was the only Black girl, or the only person of color, period,
mm,
in
yes,
most of those rooms.
yes.
And I was proactive about it, honestly. I
Mm.
actually made them bend to me rather than
Oh,
conforming to them.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So can you give some examples? I'm curious.
okay. If I disagreed with something,
Mhm.
I was always gentle, but I didn't just go along to get along.
Yes.
So without being combative or argumentative, I I don't know if this is appropriate, but I would check a bitch. Okay.
Yeah.
If
No,
I
it's we
needed
curse
to.
on this. We curse on
Yeah,
this
okay.
one.
It's like exactly. The minute that somebody started, singling me out, or I felt like I was being singled out because of being Black, and especially
Mhm.
being darker skinned,
Yeah.
I would
Absolutely.
immediately shut it down.
Mm.
And I heard a few feelings, but eventually they came to understand that my intention was not to make them accept me.
Mhm.
My intention was to be there and have them want to be accepted by me.
Oh, I like that shift. I like that shift. I like that shift. And that's an important distinction to make because it is this agency that you are carrying, right?
Mhm.
It's this claiming of your power that we all
Right.
have. We all have our innate power, but too many of us forget that and we just give it away. We give it away. Like, oh, please
Yes.
like me, oh, please accept me, please approve of me. and I'm going to do all the things that I think will make you like me, you know? And instead of saying what you're doing, which is, here I am, this is me. And if you're cool with that, then I might let you into my circle.
Maybe.
Let me think about it. You got to pass the test.
Fill you out. I'm gonna fill you out a little bit.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. But I love this.
without being judgmental. It's just a matter of this setting boundaries. This is what is acceptable to me. This is not acceptable to me. And I'm not going to hold it against you if you decide that, you know, I'm not your cup of coffee.
Right.
Black, no sugar, because that's the way it is. You know, I'm black, I'm a cup of coffee, black, no sugar. You know, I'm not going to water it down and I'm not going to sweeten it up for you. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, and if you can't see yourself in this situation, then remove yourself. That is your job. It's not my job to steer your path. My job is to stay on my own path. You know, everybody, I think about life like traffic. If everybody stayed in their own lane, everybody would get to where they were going safely. Why is it that people don't stay in their own lane? They're in, they're zigging, they're zagging, they're watching what other people are doing on the side of the road. Mind your business. Stay in your lane and keep it moving.
Do your thing, right? Do your journey. Do your journey.
My mother always said, if you mind your business, you'll live longer.
Your mama
it's true.
is right.
Because either somebody's gonna punch you in your face or you're gonna die of stress. One or the other.
Right.
Mind your business, you'll live longer.
Right. I love that. You'll either get punched in the face or die of stress.
That's right. You get punched in your face or you're gonna die from stress.
Yeah. It's so funny because you think about that. And this is an interesting thing that's coming forward now as teachers, right? You and I are both teachers. How do we both mind our business, like we are being who we are being, but also guiding others towards whatever their path might be? Do you know what I mean? There's that slight nuance. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So how do we balance that?
The way that I've always approached it is, if I notice something in one of my students, I will ask them for permission to give them advice, you know? And I watch their body language. You know, I'll say something like, Leslie, may I suggest something for you? You know, and if they, you know,
and you're like, okay, no, never mind.
And I'm like, you know what? I will just even say, you know what? Give me a second. I'll be right back. And I'll just give it a minute. And then just the fact that I offered brings their guard down. And eventually they come to me to find out what is it that she wanted to say.
Yeah, that's true. You are so good.
Yeah.
You're like, I just gotta leave you a little teaser. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll get back to you, you know, and then they're like, oh, Elise, what was that you wanted to say? You know, and so, and I teach by example as well.
Yeah.
I am the same way in the studio as I am in my own living room. I talk the same. I don't have a yoga voice. I'm like, so take a breath. I don't have a yoga voice. This is my voice. Right. Breathe in, breathe out, inhale, exhale, and good. I don't do that. That is not me at all.
I love it. Like you said,
as a yoga
black,
voice.
no sugar.
Black, no sugar. No milk, no sugar.
No milk, no sugar. That's it.
So, you know, I control the volume of my voice. Like, I'm not speaking in my, you know, my normal volume.
Right.
Like in downtimes in Shavasana during meditation.
Right.
But my voice is my voice.
Yeah. Right.
That's it. The only time I do switch voices is when I switch to Spanish. I do have a Spanish voice.
All right.
That's just the way my brain works.
Yeah, but I feel like it's a different language, so you're committed to have a different voice.
I need a different voice so that I can think in those terms.
Yeah.
And generally, people will find their own path if you just open a safe space for them.
Yeah.
Open the space, and they'll figure it out for themselves. No one likes to be told what to do.
Yeah.
You're always going to find resistance in that. So it's a suggestion. Take it or leave it. If you don't, no skin off my back.
Right. 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 You're
not.
the example and you're the guide, and here's the option, right? If you'd like to take the option, cool. If you don't, I'm just going to continue.
It's like doing a modification. It's a modification in a sauna.
Yes,
you know?
That's true. Yeah, I love that. I love that parallel because it gives it a concrete texture, like to say, oh, okay, yeah, if I want to wrap my hand around my low back, you know, in a twist, you know, like on a lunge twist, then
if I'm going to take a bind, if I don't, this is fine too.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to have to keep that in mind for my own teaching. Thank you. See, you're teaching even though
there's a little
teaching, you know?
We learn from each other all the time, just in regular conversation.
Oh yeah, all the time. But and the thing is, it asks of us to be open to those kinds of teachings, because there are some people that engage in conversations where they're already like focused on what they're going to say already, and they've already made up their mind about things. So then they close themselves off from learning whatever other pearl or teaching might be coming forward.
Yeah, the Yama, Aparagarafa, non-attachment, not being attachment to a result. I believe that when I am attached to a particular result, the road is way more curvy and bumpy and upright. I'm fighting against it because I want this result. But that result is probably not what I need. Right. Right. It's not what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. Our ego is deciding for us. And it's like,
exactly.
Ego, so you're keeping so cute.
Keeping a beginner's mind is, for me, has always helped. And that's why I like that quote so much about yoga is not about touching your toes, it's about what you learn on the way down. Because I keep a beginner's mind, no matter how long I teach, no matter how many classes I teach, I always approach every single class as if I am a beginner. And if I can write a class as if I'm a beginner, then my beginners will definitely understand it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And so I want to ask you about this beginner's mind, because that is it's a popular concept. Like, people know about it, but what does that actually mean? Right? So yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and what you do to continue to return to beginner's mind? You know, because it's hard when you have the knowledge, you can't unknow something. So it takes a little bit of effort to get to that. So tell listeners what beginner's mind is, and then how you continue to return to that.
So having a beginner's mind is as like when you first walk into a class for the very first time, whether you're an experienced yogi or not, if you go to a class that you've never been to before, where the teacher is brand new to you, that teacher is going to have his or her own particular style. And beginners, when they go into the class, they do everything the teacher says, right? They do, because they don't know. They're a little bit afraid, and they're eager to learn. So if the teacher says, please do this, then they will do it to the best of their ability. As people become stronger and progress in their practice, their physical practice, then they want to do what they want to do.
I've noticed that.
Even if it's not safe, you know, we teachers, we sequence in a way to keep you safe. That is the main thing. So if
you mean we don't throw spaghetti at a wall and just be like,
no, yeah,
what's good?
Yeah, let's just see what happens today. No, it doesn't work like that. There's a lot that goes into sequencing, which is why we go for 200, 300, 400, 500 hours of training, you know, because there's a lot to it. Now, and to me, having an advanced practice as a yogi, I've seen yogis who they can't raise their arms up over their heads, but they do have an advanced practice. And I say that because having an advanced practice to me means knowing where your edge is and being able to pull back from it.
Mm.
So you may be able to do a handstand or a split or some other complicated, twisty, pretzel-y thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to control your body, then you are no longer in a beginner's mind.
Yeah, I see. Mm-hmm.
So being able to walk up to that edge and say, okay, this is where my edge is. Or you come into class one day and, you do this beautiful crow pose or something. And then the next day, for the life of you, you just cannot get your toes off the floor. But that's okay. And see, being okay with that is maintaining a beginner's mind by not being attached to a particular outcome.
Yeah. Where you're like, oh, dang it. I did
that
yesterday.
Did it yesterday.
Why can't I do it today? What's wrong with my body? Beat up myself.
That's right. Exactly. Like I am not extremely flexible. I never have been. I'm more flexible, obviously, than I was before I started doing yoga, which is why, like, when people say, oh, I can't go to yoga because I'm not flexible. So my response is, well, do you not take a shower when you're dirty?
Right.
It's the same principle. Right. If you're dirty, you're gonna go wash your ass. So if you're not, if you're stiff, then you should go to yoga.
Right. It's so interesting to see how people are like, I need to prepare my body before I go to yoga. But wait, that yoga is the thing to help you loosen up the stuff.
Exactly.
You don't come like already an expert, but again, that's the difference, for the beginner's mind.
Exactly.
It's coming back to the childlike attitude that we talked about in the conversation. Or
even if you are relatively comfortable in a pose, no matter what that pose is, because even quote unquote beginners poses can be difficult for people, just allowing yourself to grow and find more space in your own body, more joy in your own heart.
Yes. Yeah.
Figuring out where you can do a slight adjustment that can make all the difference in how you feel in your body.
Yeah.
Slight adjustments. That's all it takes. You don't have to do these grand gestures, just slight adjustments. And I apply
to do firefly where my legs are out like this and I'm balancing on my arms and I'm like, I'm not going to find enlightenment that way.
I mean, the thing is that I have accepted that I will never do a handstand. It's just
you're okay with that.
It is not in my wheelhouse. That my body is not built for that.
Yeah. And that's what the beginner's mind is, right?
That is mind right there. That handstands is something that is just not in my wheelhouse. My body is not built for handstands, and that's it. So I do.
And you're good with that. And you're good with that.
I'm perfectly good with that.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I love that. And I love that example because I feel that a lot of yoga students feel like the handstand is like the pinnacle, for example, among other poses, other ones, but the handstands and splits. I can get there, then I made it up the top of the yoga peak or whatever.
Then I'm a real yogi.
Right. But meanwhile, what I love is what you said about how yoga is really about coming into your body and connecting with it and noticing what's different today. What can I do today? What
and accepting it.
And
accepting it.
Yes. I love that. And I feel like our conversation is a really good way to spread the word, to really get that message across to people who aren't like, they're like, yoga, that's not for me because I'm too stiff, because I'm not white enough, because I can't put my leg around the back of my head, or
I can't get into lotus pose or whatever,
or even I can't sit still because I know there's meditation involved, all these stories that people tell themselves. And part of it is the conditioning that we receive from external messages, but also it's this lack of an invitation, right? To
Yes.
come in and try it. And to explore your own self. You know,
Right.
sometimes people subconsciously are like, I don't want to know what is inside myself, you know?
But
So
yeah,
it's
yoga
okay.
is, especially in communities of color, they have this gross misconception of what yoga is. You know, they think that you're like, just, or that meditation is that you have to be completely still in meditation, which is not true. There are all different styles of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I want to get a bullhorn, and say, just come get to know yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sit down and get to know yourself.
But for some, I don't want to.
And
like,
and the
I
thing
don't
is,
like myself because of whatever,
Yoga originated in India.
Mm-hmm.
Indian people are not white.
Right. They're not.
Indian people
notice. Yeah.
So yeah, like everything else, reminds me, we have all over the world, not just in this country, but appropriation of other people's cultures and practices,
Mm-hmm.
In music, in art, in yoga. They brought yoga here to the Western world and honestly perverted it.
Yeah.
And monetized it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that yogis are supposed to be broke. No, I'm not a monk. I'm not going to take some vow of, poverty. I like nice things too, chick. I like nice things too.
We're in this human body for a reason.
Right.
We want to experience the world.
That when I'm balanced, then all those other opportunities sort of just kind of flow in.
Yeah.
Like this opportunity. I've never done a podcast before, and you asked, and I was like, "Whoa, this is awesomeness!"
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
so
beautiful. Yeah.
Unreal.
Oh man, yeah. So there's so many things that are like float, like all these good little pearls of wisdom that are floating in the air right now. That I feel that I want to gather them up and like put them on a pearl necklace and be like, hey people, here, put this on and like carry it with you as you move through whatever life you're living.
Right.
You mentioned that for communities of color, there's this sort of, I don't know if it's a reluctance, preconceived ideas about what yoga is, spirituality also in general, and I'm talking specifically about American, communities of color, right? Where it's like, if you're spiritual, then you're a weirdo, unless you're like connected with the ancestral traditions of whether it's Africa or Asia, wherever your indigenous ancestry comes from, or you're wrapped up in like some kind of religion, which is problematic, like Catholicism, for example, and all these issues. Or you're in yoga, but yoga is not really for people of color, so we're not going to go over there. And what was interesting is that last weekend, I had gathered some folks of color to just move their bodies. I didn't even call it a yoga class. It was just, we're going to move our bodies and in a safe space to get to know ourselves.
Right.
And everyone there was like, oh, this is what yoga is, like their minds were like, like, whoa, all of a sudden their worlds expanded. And so what I would love to see is more of that happening, and I love that you have come to the podcast to have this conversation with me, to tell people like, hey, you know what?
It's not white people shit. It's not. And I'm so sick of hearing that. I mean, I hear it all the time. Oh, that's white people shit. Oh, that's white people shit. Yeah. Okay, well, you know what? I'm a little black girl from Queens doing white people shit, if that's how you want to look at it. But
Right.
I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good.
You bring up a question I have for you now, because, so you're a Black girl from Queens doing white
That's
people
right.
shit.
Mhm.
What are people saying in your circles about that? Do they look at you sideways? Do they like,
They look at me, they look at me as if I'm a little bit alien. Like
Mm,
I get, you're weird. I get that a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Just curious about it.
and I'm like, all right, I'm
All
weird.
right. Right. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm happy. How about that?
No,
I'm weird and I'm happy.
or am I weird and you're basic? I mean, what? What do you want? I mean, you have to choose. You can't sit on the fence on this.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
No? Or
Yeah.
why don't
Where do
you
you
just
stand?
come be weird with me? How about that?
Yeah. Why don't you check out what's over here? Because
Yeah, come be weird with me.
yeah, people often label things that they don't understand, they're unfamiliar
Right.
with, and they're afraid of,
Mhm.
right? And that fear is, we're so used to it as people of color, we're so used to fear that it's like this normalized state where our bodies
Yes.
are held in tension all the time, that we think it's normal.
Yes.
And I was talking to somebody after a yoga session, or I don't remember what it was, but it was like,
Mhm.
oh, I finally, like, that's normal. Like relaxing my body, that's normal. I had no idea. It feels amazing. And I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, welcome to the world of yoga,
People hold themselves with intention. Oftentimes, like it's here. I'm like, your
Yeah.
shoulders are not earrings. They're not. Let them drop. Let them relax. You're not earrings. These are earrings. These are not earrings.
Shoulders are not earrings, but that is the body trying to protect itself, right?
It is.
Right. And so without that consciousness,
Mhm.
then our bodies are going to remain in this sympathetic response of stress.
Exactly.
And our bodies, are like
Mhm.
that, what you wonder why there are so many health problems in communities of color, like
True.
autoimmune disease and these
Right.
quote unquote mysterious diseases like fibromyalgia. It's like, where is
Mhm.
this all coming from? It's coming from the stress of our bodies being
Stress.
held this way because we're under a state of
Constant panic.
yeah, I was like, state of emergency, constant panic, emergency,
Mhm.
stress, like, what's the next move that's going to happen to me?
Right.
And so it's really important for us to have safe spaces that yoga can create for us.
Right.
And
And showing
yeah.
compassion for ourselves.
Mm.
Because women of color, especially,
Mhm.
are expected to be strong, but not to be angry.
Oh, especially Black women.
Yes.
I will say it for you.
Especially,
It's like,
they want you to be,
yeah.
they want you to be strong and hold it down. But
Yeah.
the minute that you get pissed off, then it's like, oh my gosh, she's Black, she's angry.
Oh yeah, yeah. Why is she
Yeah,
angry?
you're damn
Let's
right
ask
I'm
this question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, I'm angry. Okay,
Yeah.
because you're
Right.
stupid. Okay. That's why I'm
Right.
angry.
It's like, I've been trying to tell you this thing over and over again. You're still not getting it. Of course I'm gonna
Stay
get
in
pissed
your
off.
lane. Stay in
Right.
your lane. Now I'm
Right.
at. But at the minute that you show that just that little bit of fire, people get back in their own lane.
Yeah.
And we as women of color cannot, or Black women, whatever, we can't be afraid to show anger. See, that I think that's a huge problem, that you don't want to get labeled the angry Black chick or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
You don't want to
you
be labeled a
hold back.
bitch, right?
Yeah, so you hold back because you
Mhm.
don't want to be labeled angry. But sometimes
Yeah.
I am angry.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
And yoga philosophy addresses really all of these things. Just in the yamas and the yamas and the niyamas, it teaches you how to care for how to care for yourself and live a balanced and happy life, but also how to treat others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I've always been more drawn to the philosophy than I have been to the physical practice.
Yeah.
I find that the philosophy opens my mind up enough that my body just follows. It's not much effort in my body when my mind is in the right place.
Yes. And that's the secret. It's getting the inside right. Whatever that means, not to be
Whatever
like
that
right
means
or wrong. It means
What-
like in alignment.
That's right.
And then the body will follow.
Exactly.
That's so Oh, that's so good. I'm like, yes. And as far as the angry part, it's like we all feel emotions, right?
Sure.
And it's up to us to be able to express them. Otherwise, they show up in our body as disease, as
Yes.
illness. And if unexpressed emotions, no bueno, it's like we got to let that out. And if you don't like it, well, too bad.
Right.
That's on you.
That is on you. You know.
Oh, oh, oh my God. So rich, this conversation.
Well, thank you, darling.
Oh,
I'm enjoying this very much.
oh, thank you so much. I love all of the things that we have talked about today. And I really welcome your voice adding to the mix of this cross of like spiritual practices and spirituality, but also being aware of the very physical 3D identities of,
Right.
being in a body that is dark, brown, black,
Mhm.
just not safe. And a lot of people are like, well, what does spirituality and activism have to do with each other? Like, it's like they have everything to do with each other.
Everything to do with each other.
And so I'm so glad that I was able to have you on as a guest here today to talk about that and to really
Right.
see the intersection of both as it is happening in your life. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So to close our episode, my friend, did you bring any inspirational poem or quote you'd like to share with our listeners?
I did. Actually, I brought two. Okay, one
good.
is
Okay.
yoga based. So I'll start with that one. It's from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It is Sutra 1.14, and it does kind of talk about the beginner's mind. And it reads, practice becomes firmly grounded when well attended to for a long time.
Love
Just
that.
repetitive practice.
Yeah.
And this is another poem that I really, really love. It's called Black Workers. It is written by Langston Hughes in 1933. The bees work. Their work is taken from them. We are like the bees, but it won't last forever.
Oh, I love that. I love both of them. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. What a great way to wrap up our episode today. So once again, thank you, Elise, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So good. So good. Such magic. Oh, I love it. So y'all check her out. I have all her information in the show notes. So go there. And if you're local, definitely take classes with her because just like the swinging alone is the reason to come to Aerial. I mean, just to hear her voice, because you're so like peace inducing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
And so to close our episode, like we do with any yoga practice, the divine light in me bows to the divine light in you. Until next time, my friends, namaste.
Namaste.